Hey guys, today we're going to talk about how to fix anterior hip pain, aka a hip impingement.
Get up and get down, get up and get down.
Hey guys, thanks so much for stopping by the YouTube channel. Now, if you have pain when getting into a deep squat right on the front side of your hip, that's usually called a hip impingement. Today we're going to talk about not only the mechanics of how it starts, but a three-step approach that you can do to fix it at home. Now, first and foremost, let's talk a little anatomy. Now, if we look deep at the hip using our skeleton Tommy, we can see the end of your femur fits within the hip socket called your acetabulum, like a golf ball sitting within a bigger plunger. Now, right here, as you go down into a deep squat, your femur moves into the motion of flexion. Now, those who experience pain in the bottom of a deep squat often do so not because of the muscles that surround that area. So if it's only in the deep squat, it's often not something like a hip flexor issue. It's often because of something much deeper, in that your femur is running into the front side of the acetabulum, your hip socket, and pinching things together. And that's called a hip impingement. Now, here's a simple test you can do at home called the Federer test. You're basically going to lay on your back and you're gonna bring your knee straight forward. Now, if you have pain when then pulling across your body and bringing your leg out to the side, so we're flexing, and then we're internally rotating like that. If jamming that forward, pulling your knee towards this shoulder, creates that pinching pain, that is one probable sign of a hip impingement. Now, what are we going to do to actually solve the problem? We're gonna take a three-tiered approach. First and foremost, we're gonna work on creating a little bit of mobility deep within the hip joint by looking at some of the stiff capsular fibers and then re-educating the way in which the muscles that surround the outside hold the joint within place. Then we're going to work on coordination and stability and then put it all back together with a more sport or movement specific motion called a deep squat with a band around the knees. Now, here, let's do this. We'll start on step one. We'll move Tommy out to the side. I'm gonna demonstrate on my left hip for this. We're gonna do a banded joint mobilization. And this has two stages. So you're gonna find a nice thick band. This is a monster band from Rogue. You want something, it doesn't need to be from Rogue, but it needs to be a very thick, maybe about a 2.5 inch thick band. You can find them on Amazon. I'll put the link to this Rogue band in the section of the video, the description section. Here's what you do. You're gonna take this band and you're gonna get it all the way up into your hip as high as you can. Okay, and then we're gonna get a lot of pressure on this. Now, in this position, if you did not have this band and you pushed the knee inwards, you would probably feel a pinching sensation. But because this band is pulling laterally, we're creating a gapping sensation deep within the hip joint. Now when I push the knee into internal rotation that was previously restricted, I don't have that pinching pain. So I know I have enough tension on the band. If I do this and I still get that pinching pain, I need more tension. So I'm just gonna get a little bit more lateral. But two-step process. The first, we're gonna improve mobility. So the knee's gonna push in. I'm going to try to relax my lateral hip as much as possible. Again, take all that tension out of the lateral glute. I may feel a little bit of like a gapping sensation, light stretch on the outside part of the hip, but no pinching pain. Next, we invite in a neuromuscular re-education. Teach the body how to pull the femur back into a good position. So I'm gonna drive the knee out to the side, and I'm gonna squeeze my lateral glute. So I'm gonna try to squeeze my butt muscle as hard as I can, drive the knee out to the side, foot stays planted, don't let it roll on its side. Couple seconds, I can feel my glutes quiver, and then back. And I'm gonna rotate between this no tension, internal rotation position, back to re-education, squeezing the glute, back and forth. I'm gonna do that maybe 10 times, okay? And then we're automatically going to recheck and see if that deep squat feels a little bit better. Did I actually make any change in the previously restricted position? So I'm gonna squat down. Does that feel a little bit better? Yes or no? Now, for some people, that'll completely take the pain away in the short term. For some people, you may feel a little bit of a decrease, but it doesn't completely take it away. This is just step one. This alone is not the only thing you should do, because we need to fix, well, why did this area become so stiff in the first place? And often, we need to look at the muscles that surround the hip, your glute medius and your glute max. Now, when we look at the glute medius, there's a very small muscle that runs on the side of the hip and connects down here. Now, Unlike what most of you will learn about this glute medius from your anatomy books, it's not a one function muscle. It doesn't just kick out to the side. That's actually a very incorrect way of looking at the glute medius from biomechanical research that dates back to the later 1800s. It actually has 3 different heads, and they all come down here and accomplish a couple different things, but most notably, they work just like the muscles of your rotator cuff surrounding your shoulder to keep the femur centered within the socket and keep your pelvis level. So it's an active stabilizer, not just a muscle to kick out to the side. So we actually need to look at how this muscle functions in real life and not just take it as a one-stage type of muscle. How you're gonna work this muscle is through a hip airplane. And this is how it's gonna look. You're going to get into a single leg RDL position, back leg straight, small bend in the knee, tip forward. And again, you don't have to go very far forward at the start. Now in this position, I'm going to rotate up a couple inches, back down. I'm going to drop my hip a couple inches, back up. And I'm gonna do this 10 reps. And you can see my foot wobbling around a little bit. This is a difficult exercise. But what I'm doing is I'm working on all these muscles to practice steering my strength, as Dr. McGill says, to control that lateral hip. Not only to limit the motion of this, but to limit the motion of my hip dropping side to side. So I'm working the lateral hip glute medius as an active stabilizer. So again, from the front view, forward, I'm only gonna come up a couple inches, back down to parallel, drop the hip, and back up. Now, to advance this, you just go further. You can either come further forward, open up, don't let that knee cave in, back down, drop down. You can see this is a difficult exercise. Now do these. I would recommend doing these either in a flat sole shoe, I'm wearing the barefoot Ursus, or go completely barefoot so you can really work on your foot stability. Do not do these in your weightlifting shoes or with a shoe that smashes your toes together, because it's gonna be very difficult on foot stability. So you're going to do that on each leg, 2 sets of 10 reps or so until you feel that lateral glute working pretty good. Do not go too far on this early on. I see a lot of people, they get here and they go real high and they're like, oh, this is easy. And then they just fall over because it's very difficult to control. Very small motions early. At the start, back down, and after 2 sets of 10 on that hip, you'll feel it working pretty good. Do it on both sides, even if you don't have it on the impingement side, so that you can improve your control on both sides. Now, the last step for the hip impingement is to be very movement specific. We're going to work using a slingshot band right here, hip circle. Any type of hip circle band around your knee is going to be very helpful. What we're going to do is work on creating external rotation torque. So from right here, set yourself in your squat stance. Open your hips up, out to the side. As Eddie Cohen would say, open your tank. From right here, what I'm doing is I'm holding this position. I can feel my lateral glutes kicking on. I'm not letting my feet roll on their side. Feet are jammed down, toes jammed down, grabbing the ground. Opening the hips just slightly, the lateral glutes are turned on. Pulling the femur back into a good position. Now what I'm gonna do is slowly descend. And every once in a while, I'm gonna pause and hold this position for a couple seconds. Now let's say as I go down, right there, I can feel that hip impingement. I'm gonna go just above it and I'm gonna squeeze my glutes as hard as I can, try to break that band, keep my big toes jammed down, don't let the feet go out the side, holding as hard as I can. I can feel my glutes quivering because I'm trying to push out so hard. And then back up. So what you're gonna do is grade this. Go down to the point of hip impingement where you feel that pinch. Come just above it. Try to break that band, jam those knees out to the side, open your hips as hard as you can. Don't let your feet roll on the side, so keep the big toe down, and you will feel your glutes working extremely hard. So again, here, squat down. Let's say I can get maybe to about parallel. That's where I feel the pinch. All right, I'm gonna come just above, drive the knees outside, drive, drive, drive. Feel the glutes quivering because they're working so hard. Back up, and eventually with this progress, this may be over a couple days, this may be over a week, 2 span, you'll be able to get all the way down to the bottom where you can hold this position and not have that pinching sensation. At that point, that's where you're gonna start loading up the barbell for your full depth squats. Now, in the meantime, always train what you can train while you fix what you can fix. So, just because you have that hip impingement doesn't mean you just stop training squats. If you're in the middle of a preparation phase for a big lift, a big day, whether that's a competition or you just have a big day within your gym, you can still squat, you just wanna stay above that impingement zone. So you could do things like box squats, where you're maybe not dropping down as deep, still using the band around your knees. I think this should be in every single gym bag for athletes, and just grading it. And then as you are continuing to work on your depth, you can then take that box away and slowly get back. So that's sort of how you'll grade your progression back to a full depth squat. But again, wrap up with impingement. You're having pain on the front side of your hip. That happens when you're in a deep squat position. That test, the Fadir test, taking the knee across the body, creates that pain. So what we're gonna do is a banded joint mobilization, check, recheck, see if it helped at all. Now let's work on improving our coordination and stability through the lateral hip, and then make a sport-specific movement very, very controlled for, and then progressively grade that while we're training what we can. That's how you get out of a hip impingement. I hope you guys liked today's video. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section below. And please subscribe to SquatUniversity YouTube channel if you're finding any value in the content that I'm providing. Until next time, guys, happy squatting.
They say that energy flows where attention goes, so I pay no mind. Why waste my time with all these negative cats scratching? So caught up in their egos, these people have lost.